good morning. My name is Marc-Olivier Legentil. So I've been a Kata geek for a couple of years now, Kata fan, and one of the co-author of the Toyota Kata Memory Jogger with Jean-Marc Legentil and my good friend Thilo. It's my pleasure today to present you both Stephen Kane, that's been a student of Kata for more than 10 years. He's a Kata coach and a dojo instructor. And Elain Crescioni, that is a Kata enthusiast, and like she said, she has Kata thrust upon her for a couple of years.
Thanks very much. We're going to kind of rip through a slide deck real quickly, and I'm just going to talk about my lessons learned with Kata since I first picked it up in 2010, and then how I thrust it upon people like Elain and the lessons I learned from that. And then Elain and I are going to go through a live coaching session. In preparation for this, I had a conversation with Elain and said, you know, we really can't prepare for this, otherwise it'll just be an act. So I don't know how this is going to turn out or exactly what we're going to talk about. If it goes south, I'll ask you to play the role of the second coach, and maybe you can give me some advice at the end of it and how I could do it better next time. Okay, so getting beyond the starter kata. I began kata at a seminar. Beth Carrington put on a one-day workshop in northern Michigan, and immediately I was hooked. I knew this was missing from my leadership skills in what I thought was a lean environment. But I was really in this kind of top-down command and control environment, and I was telling everybody what to do. I learned this, I discovered a better way, and I went off and read the book, and then I started coaching. And I thought I was so insightful and so helpful, and I was doing kata with everybody, and I really thought I was doing this. And in reality, I was doing that. And I can imagine the conversations when I would walk up to people just thinking that they were saying to each other, just let Steve ask us questions and then he'll go away, right? So that was a painful experience, not only for the people that I was talking to, but it was a painful experience for myself as well. Because I had read the book and I knew that I was doing it right. And I couldn't figure out how things were going wrong. But what was happening was I was mixing up a few different things. I didn't understand the difference between a teacher, a coach, and a mentor. And I was putting it all together. So remember, I thought I was insightful. Coaches are not insightful. We bring no insight. The insight comes from the learner. And as a coach, we learn how to extract that. But I was trying to be a teacher and a mentor when I wasn't welcome to do that. So what is a teacher, right? Somebody who causes somebody else to gain some knowledge, right? We transfer information, we help people learn, right? A mentor is an experienced and trusted advisor. A consultant is a person who provides expert advice or knowledge on a very specific topic when they're asked to do so. Very important detail. And then what is a coach? What is a coach? You think about like sports coaches, they're really teachers, right? They're telling you how to do something, providing you with a technique. They're really teaching, and then they'll shift into coaching role, and then they'll shift back out into teaching role. And this is a really important, this was an important lesson for me because I didn't realize that when I was going back and forth because there are different responsibilities and we're doing different things to people. So a coach is someone who partners with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. So the learner's role is to hit the target, right? So one thing that a coach will never do in this situation is actually take hold of the bow and arrow. All we do is we challenge somebody to hit their target. They own the target, they own the arrow, they own the bow. And we have to remain separated from that. So what's the coach's role then? So as a teacher, we might remove somebody's struggles by giving them some information, but as a coach, we're actually encouraging people to embrace the struggle and solve the problem themselves, right? So we have this relationship that goes back and forth where the coach is asking questions, helping somebody embrace their struggle, identify where they're going, but most importantly, we allow them to own it. The target belongs to that person, the struggle belongs to them, the lessons belong to them, right? And when we're coaching people, thank you, Dan Markovitz, for this slide, we have to speak to people in a language that they understand, right? Our job is to support them. Dan wrote a blog article a while back. There you are. He wrote a blog article a while back about his experience working with a team of people who were, Dan, if I remember from the article right, they were kind of looking at you sideways when you started talking about challenge and target condition, current condition, and it just wasn't working. So this is Dan's graphic. Started changing things. What's your long-term goal? What's the short-term goal? Where are we, right? And now things started working. And so I also learned this. I have to start talking to people in the language that they understand so that I can serve them. So as I developed this, I started learning from this, I came up with this idea of covert kata, that like the ninja, I want to get in and get out without being seen, right? I want to be helpful. I want people to progress, right? I want people to take their step forward, but I don't want them to see me coming. I don't want them to have that experience of just let Steve ask us questions and then it'll go away. But get in, get out, and help them move forward. It's such that they don't notice it. So that's what I try to do. And Elain, who's going to come up here, we had an experience like this at work. We work together. I had a conversation with Elain one day, and the next day we had a little off-site meeting and giving some updates on projects, and Elain gave this update, and right in the middle of her update, she just suddenly realized, she was saying, yeah, Steve and I had this conversation yesterday, and then you caught the crap out of me yesterday, didn't you? And it just clicked. I'm like, yes, it worked. Right? Because I was trying to be subtle, I was trying to be helpful, but the storyboard can be a little bit of an impediment, right? It can get in the way. The coaching card can get in the way. The looking at the card, reading the very specific language can actually be a barrier to progress. So I wanted to develop my techniques. I wanted to learn to be a better coach, and I wanted to be able to go through the coaching model, go through all of the steps, keep her in this PDCA way of thinking, and do it in such a way that it didn't disrupt her. So what are we trying to do as coaches? A key accomplishment would be helping somebody make a shift. So in coaching speak, right, a shift is a point when somebody has a moment of discovery, like the light bulb comes on. And that's our role as coaches. That's what we're trying to achieve. And if we think about the coaching kata card, right, the front of the card, the 5 questions, those 5 questions, in my view, are really just to position the learner for the questions on the back. Specifically, what did you learn, right? But we have to have this structured conversation to get somebody to that point of understanding. And one of the troubles that I have with using the card is I put my focus on this rather than on the learner's experience. And I want to get through the questions. So when I ask the question, what do you learn, or what did you learn, usually I get a pretty vague or very shallow response. Oh, I learned this really kind of superficial thing. Something I learned a long time ago when I was a police officer in California. The key to an effective interrogation is silence. Right? Ask your question, why'd you do it? And then say nothing. Right? Become comfortable with the awkward silence. Right? So with that, what did you learn question, be silent. And so this is what it feels like. So what did you learn? So right about now is where you're starting to feel awkward, right? And you have no obligation to speak, but we all feel this. After about 5 seconds, we start feeling awkward. Now, someone will typically respond, here's my superficial response, remain silent, and just let it go. If you can master that skill, then really meaningful things start to come out. And then people start to realize what they're learning. And that's when they achieve the shift. So what is it that I'm looking for in a learner? So first is clarity on the target condition rather than the target result. And that's something I learned from Oscar 1 or 2 years ago. If you haven't listened to Oscar, I really encourage you to spend some time with him. There's a story, Oscar, that you tell about a man on the mat in a dairy trying to get this result of a certain number of widgets to go through the line in a certain amount of time. And there was a lot of frustration, and it was a great story because it really, the guy was talking about, I have to go here and do this, I have to go there and do that. So the target condition is if you can stay on this little safety mat, then you'll be able to achieve this result, right? Understand that that's the condition as opposed to the result. So having that clarity of the target condition rather than the target result, reflecting on what they don't know rather than talking about what they do. Now, it's most common that we want to talk about the things we know, and it's really unusual that we want to expose what we don't know. And as a coach, that's what we're trying to reveal, and we're trying to get that person to feel comfortable with the threshold of knowledge. I've gotten to this point where I don't understand, and understanding that is success. That's what we're here to do, right? So scientific thinking, sticking within the PDCA model, and specificity and confidence on the next step. So what's your next step? Well, I guess. So to me, red flag, and I'm just going to ask deepening questions. What does that look like to you? How will that feel? Who's going to be involved? And really get a deeper understanding. Okay, let's back up a little bit. So what is your next step? And I want to keep asking, not to make them feel bad, but they're going to leave with confidence knowing exactly what they're going to do, right? Okay, so just some quick key points, some do's and don'ts. Do let the learners own the target conditions and obstacles, and don't problem solve. They can problem solve, you ask the questions, but you don't insert yourself into the problem solving process. Keep learners focused, don't let learners go too far off into the weeds. They start straying, we want to bring them back. Internalize the coaching model, don't read from the card. If you have to start with the card, great, do that, but understand that your goal is to be able to internalize a model and think according to what's on the card and have the conversation and make sure you hit all those points, but the card is a distraction. Know what you're trying to achieve as a coach, and don't rob the learners of their opportunity to make discoveries. Dig deeper for absolute clarity, and don't let the learner off the hook with vague responses. Ask what, and don't ask why. And that's kind of a subtle point. There's something about our culture that why seems to be a bit of an attacking question, right? I conducted my experiment. What happened? I failed. Why? And then the learner kind of takes this emotional step back. So learn to ask why through what questions. Interesting, what happened? What was the result? What led to this? So, and what did you experience? So if you can avoid why, it helps people feel more comfortable. Okay, do detach yourself from the outcome of the experiment. Remember, the target belongs to the learner. So we want to remove ourselves from the outcome. Now, this is really difficult to do if you're coaching somebody who reports to you because you're responsible for those outcomes, right? But we want to remain emotionally detached from the outcome. What's important is that your learner is conducting the experiment and learning. Whether they succeed or fail, their hypothesis is proven or disproven, doesn't matter. They've taken this step forward, and that's what we're trying to achieve. You failed? Great. What did you learn? I learned, okay, good. Now we took a step forward, and we're going to keep doing that. So the outcome of the experiment, we want to stay detached from. All right? And don't get involved in the learner's process. Let them go off. If it's going to be a train wreck, let them go off and do it. There are 3 exceptions. Don't let anybody get hurt. Don't let the customer be affected, and don't incur any unreasonable expenses. Other than that, if you think they're going to go off and fail, let them. And we'll discover it soon enough. Okay, so time for an exercise. Now, typically what I do at this point is have everybody partner off in teams of 2, but we don't have time for that. So Elain's going to come up here. So Elain, why don't you come on up? So let's give Elain a hand. Thank you. So we're going to go through a coaching cycle, And our goal here is to move beyond the starter kata, move beyond the card. And Elain's going to be the learner. I'll be the coach. And we're going to have this coaching cycle without the card and without kata language. So that's a really important thing. And I encourage you to go off and try this on your own. Have your coaching cycle and do it privately before you actually do this with the people you really coach. But do it privately and specifically avoid any language on the card. Do your best to avoid that language. And let's see what we can get done in just a few minutes. So, Elain, what are you working on?
Right now, we're working on a project to change the way we communicate with our first-year brand new customers.
Okay, so what does that really mean?
We are designing a new email strategy, and we also want to have some personal touches where we call a customer and hopefully have some conversations with them. The goal mainly is to get them to adapt to their subscription early and quickly, and I guess the main goal is to increase our retention rate of our first-year customers. Okay. So that's why we're designing this new communication plan. Okay, so big long-term goal, increase retention. Your short-term goal is to improve the communication through email. Yes, especially in the first few weeks of that customer's subscription. So how will you know if you're successful with that? Well, I think it will, the success, we won't know right away because our subscriptions are a year long. Mm-hmm. So we'll have to wait to start collecting data until that renewal date comes up a year from now. But we'll know if we're successful if we increase that retention rate and more customers stick with us after the first year. And when do you expect to achieve this shorter term goal? Of implementing the new communication plan? We hope to have that up and ready for testing by next week. There's just a couple final pieces that need to be put into place for the email campaign, and then we should be able to start testing it on new customers. Let's see, what is today, the 20th? Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping by March 1st we can start using it. So that's your due date, you set March 1st? And yes. Is there a way to measure this? Sure, but like I said, it won't happen. We won't be able to see concrete results as far as the retention rate increasing until a year out. I'm hoping that we'll be able to collect some anecdotal data before then by talking to customers and getting feedback from them on how well they're adapting to the subscription. Okay, so how would you measure whether you're on track to meet your short-term goal? So not worrying about the big thing, how are you going to measure the shorter term? How will I measure? Well, is it just like it's done or it isn't kind of a thing? Yes. So kind of a binary, yeah? Yes, okay. Yes. All right, so what's your situation right now as it relates to that goal? I'm not sure what you mean by situation. So you're trying to get these pieces in place by March 1st? Right. Yep. So describe what that situation is now. What do you have in place? What isn't in place? What's getting in? Oh, as far as the new plan, we have scripted all of the emails. We wanted to include a team photo in one of the emails, so we took that photo yesterday, and now we just have to get 3 women to agree on which photo we all look good in. So I'm hoping we can do that by March 1st. All right. But then we will have to pull the trigger on that email communication plan. Yep. It's an automated email system. So what's keeping you from getting this done right now? Today, like doing it today? Huh? Like doing it today? Yeah, like why can't it be done today as opposed to March 1st? Just the emails aren't 100% ready. They're about 80% there. Okay. So we just need to go back and do some final proofreading because I'm a real stickler about not having any grammatical errors or anything like that in the emails, and I want to make sure everything's perfect before a customer sees it. So. And what's the next thing you're going to do? Before March 1st, or?
Yeah, so like as soon as we leave here and go back to the office, what's going to be the next?
We'll get that photo in place in that one email, and I and probably one other person will proofread the emails one final time, and then we will, the next new customer we get after March 1st, we'll start putting them on this plan.
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. So something that's standing out to me is hopefully and someone. So those are a couple of things that kind of raise some red flags.
Okay.
And we know with our own project management working together that those are things that will keep things from happening, right? So somebody's not identified, so someone's not responsible, if I'm understanding right, and we're not really clear on what's going to be done. So what exactly will you do?
I will do the proofreading, and as a team, Britta, Tiana, and myself will choose the photo and have that put in the email. And once I do my proofreading, I will have Britta do another run through on it, and then we'll call it done. And
Okay, good. So I'd like to follow up with you and see how all that works out. What would be the soonest time that we can do that?
Well, let's see, tomorrow's Friday, so how about next Monday,
Okay, so Monday at what time?
2 o'clock?
Monday, 2 o'clock, Central Time, because
Yes.
I live in the Eastern Time Zone.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Elaine. So that's just a brief example of walking somebody through that. And I don't know what you were doing, but the whole time we're having this conversation, I'm imagining where my thumb would be on the card. Like, where am I? What did I miss? Because it doesn't always go in order. And then there's some questions I didn't ask. Like, Elaine, I wanted to ask, what did you do to get to where you are now? What was the last thing you did, right? What was your last step? But Elaine had already said that. We had just taken these photos, and we're trying to work all this stuff out. And she learned, what I got from it, that it's not easy to get everybody to agree on what the photograph is. So I didn't want to belabor that. I got it, and it was time for me to move on. So I don't need to ask all of the questions all of the time. So that was just kind of a very simple example. When I did this last summer at a Kata Practitioner Day in Michigan, I had never done this before. I asked everybody in the room to pair off and ask one person, just decide amongst yourself, one person be the coach, one person be the learner. Learner, have something that you want to accomplish, have your own target condition in mind, and nothing private. It doesn't have to be work, no deep, dark secrets, but have something to accomplish. And coaches, go through the kata without using the card, without using the kata language, and let's see what comes of this. And in 5 minutes, we're going to swap and do the same thing. And it just erupted into this big noise for 5 minutes, and I had no idea if anybody was actually doing it, but everybody was having a conversation, and it seemed like a lot of fun. And at the end, I was a little nervous because I thought everybody was socializing. And I just asked what happened, because I've never done this before, and what actually happened. And there was silence, and I was really concerned. And then somebody spoke up and said, I have a challenge with somebody I'm working with, and I don't know how to deal with it. We're having this conflict, and in 5 minutes, I thoroughly understood the issue. I know exactly what I'm going to do next, and I know what I'm going to do if that fails. Oh, interesting. Somebody else brought up a similar story, and then afterwards, somebody contacted me in the hall and said, hey, I'm really glad we did that, because last night my wife told me I spent too much time at work and I traveled too much and I need to devote more attention to the family. And he said, I didn't sleep last night, but now I know exactly what I'm going to do. I have complete confidence that I can resolve this, and I'm going to take care of this, and I feel very good about being able to move forward and take care of my family. And it was being able to follow that model as a coach and staying out of the issues, right, but keeping people thinking about how they're going to take responsibility for their own struggles, their own challenges, right? So again, that difference between the teacher and the coach. The teacher relieves some struggles by providing some knowledge and providing some expertise, right? I'm going to help you make your life easier with this knowledge. A coach says, I acknowledge that you're struggling, and I'm going to encourage you to embrace it, and I'm not going to do anything to relieve it, right? Because only you can do that, right? But I'm going to help you gain some focus so that you can achieve it on your own. So I hope this has been helpful to you. It's been useful. I've certainly enjoyed being able to speak to you about it today, and I'm certainly happy to talk to you afterwards if I can ever be of any assistance. Thank you very much.